Listen, every single one of you has that switch, that fire. But most people, they never flip it. Discipline ain't about talent. It ain't about luck. It's about deciding right now that you will not let your feelings dictate your future. When you flip that switch, when you lock in, nothing, and I mean nothing, can stop you. Today, we're going to find that switch and we're going to flip it together. Discipline is a decision, not a feeling. Too many people live their lives thinking that discipline is something you wake up with, something that just magically appears when you feel motivated or inspired. But that's the lie that keeps you stuck, keeps you stagnant, keeps you exactly where you are year after year. Discipline has nothing to do with how you feel. Feelings are fleeting. They change with the weather, with your mood, with your circumstances. One moment you feel unstoppable, ready to conquer the world. And the next moment you feel drained, tired, unmotivated, maybe even hopeless. If you allow your actions to be dictated by those feelings, you will never achieve the level of consistency required to build something great, something lasting. Discipline is a choice, a deliberate act of willpower, an internal decision you make regardless of the noise, the excuses, the distractions, or the emotions pulling you in the opposite direction. When you truly decide, that discipline will run your life and not your feelings. You take back control. You stop negotiating with yourself. You stop saying, I'll start tomorrow, or I'll do when I feel ready. Readiness is an illusion. You will never feel fully ready. And that's the point. Discipline kicks in when your feelings fail you. It's that voice inside that says, I don't care how tired I am. I don't care how much I want to quit. This is who I am now, and this is what I do. That voice, that inner decision is what separates the people who wish from the people who do. Every single person you've ever admired, every champion, every leader, every success story, they built their lives on that one principle. They made the decision. They flipped the switch, and they never turned it off. Think about the mornings when you don't want to get up, when that alarm goes off, and you feel the weight of your body telling you, just 5 more minutes. That's the moment where the decision lies. You either listen to the weakness of the moment, or you stand up and say, no, I made a commitment to myself. I moved because I said I would. That's not motivation. That's not hype. That's discipline. And when you practice that day after day, when you repeatedly choose action over excuses, something inside you changes. You start to trust yourself. You build a track record with your own mind that says, if I say it, that self-trust becomes unshakable, and with it comes confidence, power, and momentum. But don't think discipline is something you just find once and keep forever without effort. No. Discipline is a decision you make over and over and over again. Every day. Every hour. Every situation where you could choose comfort or you could choose growth. And here's the truth. Comfort is always louder. Comfort will always whisper in your ear, telling you that you can take a break, that you've earned it, that one day off won't hurt. And maybe one day doesn't hurt. But when you start choosing comfort over and over, you build a habit of quitting, a habit of letting yourself off the hook. That's why the decision to be disciplined has to be renewed constantly. You have to remind yourself who you are, why you started, and what's at stake if you stop. It's not about big, heroic actions either. People think discipline means going from 0 to 100 overnight, but real discipline is built in the small, quiet, unglamorous choices. It's waking up early when nobody else will. It's putting your phone away and finishing that project. It's saying no to distractions when the world is screaming for your attention. It's sticking to the plan when your friends are going out and you know you've got work to do. It's every small, boring, consistent decision that compounds into greatness over time. You don't build discipline in the spotlight. You build it in the shadows, in the moments where nobody's watching, where nobody's clapping, where nobody's giving you credit. And if you can win those moments, you can win anything. Your feelings will never be on your side when it's time to do hard things. That's just the way we're wired. The brain craves comfort, safety, the path of least resistance. But discipline reprograms that instinct. Discipline teaches your brain that your word is law, that your actions are not up for negotiation. And once you internalize that, you start to become dangerous because nothing external can dictate your output anymore. Bad day. You still execute. Tired. You still execute. Not in the mood. You still execute. Because discipline doesn't ask how you feel. It just moves. And let me tell you something people will notice. They might not say it out loud, but they'll see it. They'll see you showing up when they're making excuses. They'll see you keeping promises to yourself when everyone else is breaking theirs. And some of them will resent you for it because discipline exposes the laziness in others. But that's not your concern. Your only concern is keeping that internal promise alive, keeping that decision firm every single day. Discipline is freedom. Most people think freedom means doing whatever you want, whenever you want. That's not freedom. That's chaos. Real freedom comes when you've trained yourself to act with purpose, when you've eliminated the constant tug of war between what you want now and what you want most. When you are disciplined, you don't waste energy debating with yourself. You've already decided. The path is set and you just walk it. That clarity, that certainty, that peace, that's what discipline gives you. And it's available to anyone at any time because it's not about talent, not about resources, not about luck. It's about choice. There will be days when your emotions are screaming for you to quit. When your mind is spinning every excuse it can think of, when your body is begging you to take the easy road. Those are the days that count the most. Those are the days when the decision to be disciplined builds a layer of resilience you can't fake. You get stronger every time you say no to the easy option and yes to the disciplined one. Over time, that strength becomes who you are. It becomes automatic. And that's when you start to realize just how much control you have, how much power you've been giving away every time you said, I don't feel like it. You'll never control your emotions completely, and you don't need to. You don't need to feel like doing the work. You just need to decide you're going to do it anyway. The greatest athletes, the most successful entrepreneurs, the leaders who inspire millions, they're not special. They don't always feel motivated. They've just mastered the art of choosing discipline over feelings. They've made a habit of flipping that switch every time their emotions try to pull them off course. That's the only difference. And that difference changes everything. The truth is, your life right now is a reflection of your past decisions, not your past feelings. Every time you decided to show up, to do the work, to keep moving forward, even when you didn't want to, you built the life you're living now. And every time you gave in to feelings, every time you chose the comfort of now over the reward of later. If you want to change your life, you don't need to change your feelings. You need to change your decisions. You need to flip the switch and keep it flipped. No matter what consistency beats intensity every single time. Most people think success comes from doing something massive, from one big action that changes everything overnight. But that's not the truth. The truth is that the people who win, the people who reach the top of their field, the people who transform their bodies, their businesses, their lives, are the ones who understand that showing up every single day, no matter what, is what creates lasting results. Intensity feels good in the moment. Intensity gives you that rush, that adrenaline, that sense of doing something epic, but intensity fades. It burns out. It leaves you with nothing but the memory of a strong start and no progress to show for it. Because the real game isn't about how hard you can go for one day or 1 week. It's about how consistent you can be for months, for years, for as long as it takes to build what you say you want. Think about how many people start strong. At the beginning of every year, gyms are packed, planners are full, vision boards are covered with big dreams and big promises. People are fired up, ready to give it everything they've got. And for a few days, maybe a few weeks, they go hard. They crush their workouts. They eat clean. They wake up early. They tell everyone how disciplined and committed they are. But then life happens. The excitement wears off. That initial intensity drains away. And because they never built the habit of showing up, regardless of how they feel, they quit. They fade out. They look up 6 months later and wonder why nothing has changed. Consistency is what separates the people who keep moving forward from the ones who get stuck in that cycle of starting and stopping. Consistency is the quiet, unsexy, repetitive action of doing the work day in and day out, even when nobody is watching, even when it's inconvenient, even when it feels like nothing is happening. Consistency doesn't ask for perfection. It doesn't require you to be flawless. It just demands that you keep showing up, that you keep putting one foot in front of the other, that you refuse to let a single setback turn into a spiral. Intensity will have you trying to overhaul your entire life in one night. You'll tell yourself you're going to work out 2 hours a day, eat perfectly clean, wake up at 4 a.m., build a business, read a book a week, and still have time for family and friends. And for a few days, maybe even a week, you'll ride that high. But the moment your schedule gets tight, the moment you feel tired, the moment real life throws a curveball, that intensity collapses. You can't sustain it because you built your plan on hype instead of habits. Consistency, on the other hand, builds slowly. It's about starting where you are, doing what you can and never missing twice. It's about understanding that progress isn't about doing everything at once. It's about doing something every day without fail until it becomes who you are. When you focus on consistency, you stop chasing perfect days and start chasing perfect streaks. You don't need to hit the gym for 2 hours. You just need to show up for 30 minutes. You don't need to write an entire book in a weekend. You just need to write a page every single day. You don't need to completely overhaul your diet overnight. You just need to make one better decision today than you did yesterday. Those small, consistent actions compound over time in ways you can't even imagine. 1 page a day becomes a finished book. 1 workout a day becomes a transformed body. 1 disciplined choice a day becomes a life you're proud of. The problem is that people underestimate the power of small actions done consistently. They think if they're not going all out, if they're not exhausting themselves, then it doesn't count. But here's the truth. You don't need to be extreme. You just need to be consistent. Consistency is the force multiplier that turns small, steady efforts into massive, undeniable results. And the best part is consistency is always within your control. You can't always control the intensity. Some days you're going to be tired. Some days you're going to be busy. Some days life is going to hit you hard. But you can control whether or not you show up. The people who achieve greatness understand this. They don't rely on bursts of motivation. They build systems. They build habits. They know that every day they execute, no matter how small the action, they're stacking bricks. They're building a foundation that will hold no matter what storms come. And when the time comes to push, when they need that intensity, they have the base to handle it. But they never confuse intensity with consistency. They know intensity is a tool, not a strategy. Think about an athlete training for a championship. They don't just show up once in a while and crush one brutal workout. They train every single day. They repeat the same drills over and over until they're second nature. They understand that mastery isn't built in moments of intensity. It's built in the quiet, consistent repetition of the fundamentals. The same applies to any area of life. If you want to build a business, it's not about one big launch or one viral moment. It's about showing up every day, doing the work, improving your skills, building your audience, serving your customers brick by brick, day after day, until the foundation is so strong it can't be shaken. And here's what's powerful: consistency builds confidence. Every time you show up, every time you keep your word to yourself, you create evidence that you can be trusted. You start to believe in yourself on a deeper level because you're proving through action that you are who you say you are. That self-trust becomes fuel. It becomes the thing that carries you through the days when motivation is gone, when you're tired, when you're questioning if any of it is worth it. Consistency is what keeps you grounded when everything else is uncertain. It's also what makes progress inevitable. You might not see the results right away. In fact, you probably won't. That's why most people quit. They put in the work for a week, maybe two, and because they don't see dramatic change, they decide it's not working. But consistency isn't about instant results. It's about trusting the process long enough for the compound effect to kick in. Every rep, every page, every disciplined action is a deposit in the bank. And one day, without warning, the results explode. People call it an overnight success, but you'll know the truth, it wasn't overnight. It was the result of hundreds, maybe thousands of days where you chose consistency over intensity, process over hype, discipline over chaos. And the beauty of it is that consistency is available to everyone. You don't need special talent. You don't need perfect conditions. You don't need to have it all figured out. All you need to do is commit to showing up, to taking that one small step every single day, no matter what. If you miss a day, you don't quit. You don't let one bad moment turn into a bad week or a bad month. You reset. You keep going. You make consistency your default, not intensity. Because here's the truth: the world doesn't reward intensity. It rewards consistency. Nobody cares how hard you went for 3 days if you disappeared for 3 months. Nobody remembers the person who started fast and quit when it got hard. But everyone notices the one who just keeps showing up quietly, relentlessly, day after day after day. Because when you keep showing up, you get better. You build skill. You build momentum. And momentum is everything. Once you have momentum, the game changes. The work gets easier because it becomes who you are. You don't have to think about it. You don't have to force it. You just do it, because that's what consistent people do. The truth is, intensity might get you started, but consistency is what keeps you moving forward long after everyone else has stopped. It's what carries you through the grind, through the boredom, through the days when nobody's watching and nobody's cheering. It's what makes you dangerous, because when you build the habit of showing up, nothing can stop you. Not failure, not setbacks, not criticism. Because, no matter what, you're going to keep showing up tomorrow, and the day after that, and the day after that. Your environment builds or breaks you, and most people don't even realize how much power their surroundings have over their habits, their mindset, and their outcomes. Every single day, you are influenced by what you see, what you hear, and who you spend your time with, the spaces you move through, the people you interact with, the information you consume. All of it is either pushing you closer to the person you want to become or pulling you further away without you even noticing. You can have the best intentions, the strongest plan, and the most detailed goals written down. But if your environment is not aligned with where you want to go, you will always feel like you're swimming against the current. Look around you right now. The clutter on your desk, the notifications constantly popping up on your phone, the negative voices around you, the people who talk more about problems than solutions. All of that shapes your behavior. It's quiet, it's subtle, but it's constant. You cannot expect to live a disciplined, focused, and driven life if you're surrounded by distractions, chaos, and people who don't share your vision. Success doesn't happen in a vacuum. It grows in the soil of the environment you create for yourself. And if you're not intentional about that environment, you're leaving your future to chance. People underestimate how deeply we are wired to adapt to the energy of the people around us. If you spend enough time around unmotivated, undisciplined, negative people, it won't be long before you start thinking and acting like them. Not because you're weak, but because that's human nature. We mirror what we see. We pick up the habits, the language, the standards of the tribe we belong to. If your circle normalizes mediocrity, if your circle spends its time gossiping, complaining, or avoiding hard work, you will slowly absorb that energy. And you won't even realize it until one day you wake up and wonder why you've been stuck in the same place for years. On the flip side, when you surround yourself with people who are disciplined, driven, and obsessed with growth, your standards automatically rise. You don't want to be the one slacking when everyone else is moving forward. You don't want to be the one making excuses when everyone around you is finding solutions. High standards are contagious, just like low standards are contagious. That's why your environment is either a trap or a ladder. It's either holding you down or pulling you up. It's not just people either. Your physical environment matters just as much. If you want to build discipline, design your space to make discipline easier and distractions harder. If your phone is the first thing you see when you wake up, you're going to scroll. If your kitchen is full of junk food, you're going to eat it. If your workspace is cluttered and chaotic, your mind will be cluttered and chaotic. But if you create an environment where the path of least resistance is the one that aligns with your goals, you set yourself up to win without even thinking about it. Put the book you want to read on your pillow so you see it before bed. Lay out your gym clothes the night before so there's no decision to make in the morning. Remove the apps that waste your time. Small changes to your environment create massive shifts in your behavior over time because they take willpower out of the equation and make discipline automatic. Your environment is also shaped by what you feed your mind, the content you consume every day. Podcasts, music, social media, books, conversations, programs your subconscious more than you think. If you spend hours scrolling through negativity, drama, and mindless entertainment, don't be surprised when your thoughts are scattered and your energy is drained. But if you fill your mind with knowledge, with inspiration, with ideas that challenge you and push you to grow, you start to think differently. You start to see opportunities instead of obstacles. You start to believe you can do more because you're surrounding yourself with proof that more is possible. And here's the part most people don't want to hear sometimes. Changing your environment means making hard decisions about the people in your life. You can't grow in the same environment that keeps you small. You can't become disciplined and focused while spending your time with people who don't value those things. That doesn't mean you cut everyone off or isolate yourself from the world, but it does mean you have to be intentional about where your energy goes. Protecting your environment is protecting your future. If someone is constantly negative, constantly dragging you into drama, constantly making you feel like your goals are unrealistic, you need to create distance. Because every moment you spend in that energy is a moment you're not building the environment you need to succeed. There's a reason why some people seem to rise so quickly once they find the right circle. It's not magic, it's alignment. They put themselves in rooms where success is normal, where discipline is expected, where growth is celebrated. And over time, they adapt to that level. They start to think bigger, act bolder, and believe in themselves more because they're surrounded by people who reflect that reality back to them. If you've ever heard the saying that you're the average of the 5 of people you spend the most time with, understand that it's not just a catchy phrase. It's the truth. Your environment sets the ceiling for your potential. And if you want to raise that ceiling, you have to raise the quality of your environment. The good news is that you have complete control over this, even if it doesn't feel like it. You don't have to live in the perfect neighborhood or have the perfect connections to build an environment that pushes you forward. Start with small, intentional changes. Create a space that feels clean and focused. Fill your playlist with music that energizes you instead of draining you. Follow people online who inspire you and share real value instead of noise. Seek out conversations with people who challenge you to think differently. You'll be amazed at how quickly your mindset shifts when your environment starts reflecting your goals instead of your habits. The environments you tolerate today will shape who you become tomorrow. If you tolerate clutter, you'll live in chaos. If you tolerate negative people, you'll think negatively. If you tolerate mediocrity, you'll accept mediocrity. But if you demand an environment of excellence, if you demand that your surroundings match the vision you have for your life, you'll start making choices that align with that standard without even realizing it. The version of you who hits every goal you've written down isn't operating in a space filled with distractions, excuses, and noise. That version has built an environment where success is the default. And this isn't about perfection. Your environment doesn't have to be flawless. It just has to be intentional. It has to support the person you're trying to become instead of the person you're trying to leave behind. It's about alignment. Every time you take a look around and ask yourself, does this space, this circle, this input reflect where I want to go? You take another step toward building an environment that works for you instead of against you. What you'll find is that once your environment starts to shift, everything else becomes easier. Discipline feels less like a fight and more like a flow. You don't have to rely on sheer willpower to do the right thing because your environment is constantly nudging you in the right direction. You start to crave the habits that align with your vision because they're baked into the spaces you live and the people you're around. And when your environment and your actions are in harmony, growth is inevitable. Pain is temporary. Regret is forever. And the sooner you understand that, the sooner you start making choices that will shape your future instead of chaining you to your past. Pain hurts. There's no denying that. It's uncomfortable. It's exhausting. It tests every ounce of your strength. But pain has a purpose. Pain is the signal that growth is happening. Pain is the barrier that keeps the average from the elite, the good from the great. Pain is temporary because no matter how intense it feels in the moment, it always passes. Your muscles recover. Your mind adapts. Your heart heals. Your situation changes. But the regret of not acting, the regret of quitting, the regret of knowing you had a chance and you didn't take it, that never goes away. That regret stays with you. It eats at you. It follows you into every quiet moment and whispers in your ear, reminding you of what you could have been if you had just endured a little longer. When you avoid pain, what you're really doing is choosing comfort over growth, and comfort is a liar. Comfort tells you that staying safe will keep you happy, but what it really does is keep you stagnant. Comfort feels good in the moment, but over time it rots your potential. Every opportunity, every dream, every goal requires a price to be paid, and that price is almost always paid in discomfort, in sacrifice, in discipline that feels like pain while you're in it. The weight you need to lift to grow stronger will burn your muscles. The hours you need to dedicate to your craft will burn your energy. The conversations you need to have, the risks you need to take, the fears you need to confront, they all hurt. They all test you, but that pain is the ticket to transformation. The problem is that most people see pain as a stop sign instead of a green light. They feel that resistance, that discomfort, and they retreat. They think something must be wrong because it's hard. But nothing is wrong. Pain is the process. Pain is the signal that you're breaking through the old version of yourself and stepping into a stronger, sharper, more disciplined version. It's temporary, but you have to be willing to feel it long enough for it to do its work. The mind will scream at you to quit, to pull back, to go back to what's easy and familiar. But that voice is the voice of fear, and fear will always keep you small if you let it. The people who build unshakable lives are the ones who understand this at their core. They know pain is part of the path. They expect it. They embrace it. They don't fight it or run from it. They lean into it because they know that everything they want is on the other side of that temporary discomfort. They've trained their minds to see pain not as a punishment, but as a sign of progress. Every rep that burns, every morning they don't want to get up but do anyway, every setback they push through, those moments are the building blocks of resilience. Regret, on the other hand, is permanent. Regret doesn't fade with time. It lingers, and it grows heavier as the years pass. You can lie to yourself, you can distract yourself, you can pretend you're fine, but deep down, you know when you've let yourself down. You know when you've quit on yourself. And that feeling of knowing you could have done more, that you could have been more, is the heaviest weight you'll ever carry. People will do almost anything to avoid temporary pain, but they don't realize they're trading it for a lifetime of regret, and that trade is never worth it. Think about the moments in your life when you held back, when you quit, when you chose comfort over effort. Those moments stick with you, don't they? You can still remember them vividly because regret has a way of etching itself into your memory. Now think about the times when you pushed through, when you endured, when you stayed in the fight, even when every part of you wanted to stop. Those memories feel different. They feel like pride, like proof that you're capable of so much more than you thought. That's the thing about pain. It fades and leaves behind strength, confidence, and growth, while regret stays and leaves behind nothing but what if. The truth is, pain is the currency of progress. If you want a better body, you have to pay for it with sweat and effort. If you want to build a business, you have to pay for it with long nights, tough decisions, and relentless focus. If you want to become the best version of yourself, you have to pay for it with sacrifice, with discipline, with moments where you're pushed so far outside your comfort zone that you barely recognize yourself. Every dream demands a payment, and that payment is temporary pain. But once you've paid it, once you've endured it, nobody can take away what you've earned. There's also a strange kind of beauty in pain. Pain reveals you to yourself. It strips away the excuses, the masks, the stories you tell yourself about who you are and what you can handle. When you're in pain, when you're deep in the struggle, you see the truth about yourself, what you're willing to tolerate, how far you're willing to push what you're truly made of. And every time you face that truth and refuse to quit, you build a deeper level of belief in yourself. You start to understand that there's no situation you can't handle, no obstacle you can't overcome, because you've been in the fire before and you came out stronger. Pain also teaches you presence. When you're pushing through that workout, that long night of studying, that difficult season in your life, pain forces you into the moment. It strips away the noise and demands your full attention. And in that focus, in that raw, honest space, you find clarity. You find out what matters and what doesn't. You find out that you don't need to wait for perfect conditions, for motivation, for permission. You just need to keep moving forward, one painful step at a time. And here's the paradox: the more you embrace pain, the less power it has over you. When you stop running from discomfort, when you stop seeing it as something to avoid, it stops controlling you. It becomes just another part of the process, another signal that you're on the right path. You stop fearing hard work because you understand that hard work is the shortcut. You stop dreading the grind because you know that's where the magic happens. You stop wishing things were easier and start wishing you were stronger. and then you do the work to make it true. People will look at you differently when you live this way. They'll see the way you show up, the way you push through, the way you refuse to quit, and they'll think you're different. But you're not. You're just someone who made a choice to feel temporary pain. Now, instead of living with permanent regret later, that's the only difference between the people who have what they want and the people who spend their lives wishing. One group accepts the cost of pain, and the other spends their lives paying the interest on regret. And understand, this pain doesn't discriminate. It's coming for you either way. You're going to feel the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. The pain of discipline is hard, but it's clean. It leads somewhere. It builds something. The pain of regret is heavy, and it never lets you go. It doesn't build. It destroys. It eats away at your confidence, your belief in yourself, your willingness to try again. When you know that pain is unavoidable, the choice becomes simple. Choose the pain that makes you better. Choose the pain that makes you stronger. Choose the pain that leads to pride instead of the pain that leads to shame. Every single time you choose to push through, you cast a vote for the person you want to be. Every single time you lean into the discomfort, instead of running from it, you're building a future that won't be haunted by what ifs and I should haves. The moments when you want to quit, the most are the moments that define you. They're the moments that separate the ones who talk from the ones who do, the ones who wish from the ones who build. The truth is, life is short, but it's also long enough to regret every chance you didn't take, every opportunity you let slip away because you didn't want to feel a little pain. Years from now, you won't remember how tired you were, how much it hurt, how uncomfortable it felt to stay disciplined in the moment. But you will remember what it felt like to quit. You will remember what it felt like to know you let fear win. You will remember the gap between what you wanted and what you settled for, and that is a kind of pain that never ends. So when you're faced with the choice, push through or give up, endure or quit, embrace the pain or run from it. Remember that pain is temporary, but regret will follow you for the rest of your life. Small wins create big momentum, and this is where so many people get it wrong. They think success is built on massive breakthroughs, overnight changes, or some big moment of transformation that flips everything upside down. They're waiting for that one perfect day when they suddenly have all the energy, all the discipline, and all the answers. But that day never comes because success isn't built on giant leaps. It's built on consistent small wins that stack up over time until the weight of all those wins becomes unstoppable momentum. Momentum is the force that carries you forward. When motivation fades, when discipline feels heavy, when doubt starts to whisper in your ear. And the way you build that momentum is by collecting small wins, one after another, every single day. Think about a snowball rolling down a hill. At first, it's small, almost insignificant. It doesn't look like much, but as it keeps rolling, it picks up snow. It picks up speed. It grows. And by the time it gets to the bottom of the hill, it's massive and powerful, impossible to stop. That's what happens when you focus on small wins. Each one might feel tiny on its own. Getting up when your alarm rings, finishing a workout, reading 10 pages, making one phone call, sticking to your nutrition plan for the day. But every time you win, you're adding to that snowball. You're building something bigger than the action itself, because every small win reinforces the belief that you can do this, that you are capable of following through, that you are in control of your actions. The brain loves progress. It doesn't need the progress to be huge. It just needs to see that you're moving forward. That's why those small wins are so powerful. They give you evidence that you're not stuck, that you're capable of change, that your efforts are paying off. And when you start stacking those wins, something incredible happens. Your confidence grows. That confidence fuels more action. More action leads to more wins. And just like that, you've built momentum without even realizing it. Momentum is what makes discipline easier. When you're stuck at the bottom, when you've been stagnant for a while, everything feels heavy. The first step feels impossible. The second step feels just as hard. You're battling resistance at every turn. But when you start to create momentum, the weight shifts. The same actions that felt impossible start to feel automatic. You don't have to drag yourself to the gym. You go because it's who you are now. You don't have to fight with yourself to eat clean. It's just part of the routine. You don't have to force yourself to make that extra call, send that extra email, write that extra page. You do it because the motion has become natural. The beauty of small wins is that they're always within reach. You don't need perfect conditions. You don't need to wait until you feel ready. You just need to pick something you can control right now, something you can do today and execute. That might mean making your bed. It might mean walking for 10 minutes. It might mean writing down 3 things you're grateful for. These actions seem so small that people dismiss them, but those tiny actions are what lay the foundation for big change. Because once you've won once, you can win again. Once you've stacked a few days of small wins, you start to see yourself differently. You stop seeing yourself as someone who quits and start seeing yourself as someone who follows through. And that shift in identity changes everything. Look at anyone who's achieved anything significant, and you'll find the same pattern, small wins, repeated over and over, creating momentum that carried them through the hard days. Athletes don't start by lifting the heaviest weight in the gym. They start with what they can handle, they master it, and they add more over time. Writers don't sit down and write an entire novel in one sitting. They write a page, then another and another until the book is done. Entrepreneurs don't build billion-dollar businesses overnight. They start by making 1 sale, then 2, then 10, then 100, and the momentum builds. And the key is not to underestimate the compound effect of these small actions. 1 workout won't transform your body, but 100 will. 1 healthy meal won't change your life, but consistently choosing better meals over time will. 1 hour of focused work won't build your dream, but stacking hour after hour after hour will. Consistency is what allows those small wins to turn into unstoppable momentum. And that momentum is what separates those who succeed from those who stall. Another powerful thing about small wins is that they create feedback loops. Every time you win, you get a little hit of dopamine, that chemical in your brain that signals pleasure and reward. Your brain starts to associate discipline with progress, with pride, with accomplishment. And when you start to crave that feeling of progress, you start to seek out more opportunities to win. That's why people who build momentum seem to move faster and faster over time. They're not superhuman. They've just trained their brains to associate action with reward, and that loop drives them forward. Small wins also help you silence that inner critic, the voice in your head that tells you you're not good enough, that you can't change, that it's not worth it. Every time you follow through on a commitment, no matter how small, you prove that voice wrong. You gather evidence that you are capable, that you are disciplined, that you are in control. And the more evidence you gather, the quieter that voice becomes. Eventually, it stops running the show. This is why starting small is so important, especially when you're trying to break old habits or build new ones. People get stuck because they think they have to overhaul their entire life overnight. And when they inevitably can't sustain that level of intensity, they crash and burn. But if you start with small, manageable wins, you build a foundation that lasts. It's not about going from 0 to 100. It's about going from 0 to 1, then 1 to 2, then 2 to 3. That slow, steady climb creates momentum that no setback can fully stop. And setbacks will come. You will have days where you slip, where you fall short, where the momentum slows. But if you've built the habit of stacking small wins, you won't stay down for long. You'll have proof that you've done it before, that you can do it again, and that confidence will get you moving forward faster than you think. Momentum isn't about never falling. It's about never staying down. Small wins also keep you focused on the process instead of the outcome. When you're only focused on the big goal, losing 50 pounds, making 6 figures, running a marathon, it's easy to feel overwhelmed, to feel like you're too far away to ever make it. But when you break it down into small, winnable actions, the goal stops feeling impossible. You stop obsessing over the finish line and start winning the day. And if you win enough days, the finish line takes care of itself. Momentum doesn't just help you achieve your goals, it changes your identity. When you start stacking wins, you stop seeing yourself as someone who tries and start seeing yourself as someone who executes. That shift in self-image is powerful. It changes how you show up. It changes how you talk to yourself. It changes what you believe is possible. And once you believe you are the kind of person who shows up and wins, you'll start making choices that align with that belief automatically. The secret is to make your wins simple, clear, and trackable. Write them down. Celebrate them. Make a checklist and cross things off every day. Those small celebrations matter because they reinforce the behavior you want to build. And the more you reinforce it, the stronger it gets. Over time, those small, seemingly insignificant actions will have created a life that looks completely different from the one you started with. Momentum is the difference between effort and ease. At the beginning, it will feel like you're pushing a heavy boulder uphill. Every action will take conscious effort. Every step will feel slow. But once you build momentum, once you've stacked enough wins, that boulder starts rolling on its own. The actions that once felt hard become automatic. The habits that once felt impossible become second nature. That's when you realize the power of small wins. Not because they're small, but because they were the first spark that ignited the fire. And the best part is that momentum doesn't care where you start. It doesn't care how far behind you think you are, how many times you've failed, how many excuses you've made. All it cares about is movement. One step, one action, one win today. Then another tomorrow. Then another the day after that. And before you know it, you're not thinking about starting anymore. You're thinking about what's next, about how far you can go, about how much more you're capable of. Flip the switch daily, no off days. Because discipline isn't something you do when you feel like it. It's something you do because you've decided that this is who you are now. Every single day, from the moment you wake up until the moment you close your eyes, there is a battle going on inside you between the version of you that wants to grow and the version of you that wants to stay comfortable. And that battle never goes away. The voice that tells you to take it easy, to skip the hard stuff, to settle for average will be there every single morning. But so will the switch. That switch is the decision to show up, to execute, to keep moving forward no matter what. And you have to flip it daily. Not once a week, not when it's convenient, not when you're motivated, but every single day without fail. The reason so many people fail to build real momentum is because they treat discipline like an event instead of a lifestyle. They'll show up hard for a few days, maybe a week, and then they take a day off. They tell themselves it's just one day, but one day becomes two, two becomes a week, and before they know it, they've lost the rhythm, they've lost the edge, and they're right back where they started. The truth is, there are no off days when you're chasing greatness. It doesn't mean you never rest. It doesn't mean you grind yourself into the ground. But even on your rest days, the switch stays flipped. Your habits stay tight. Your standards stay high. You never let yourself drift back into that mindset where you wait to feel ready, because that's how you lose everything you've worked for. Flipping the switch daily is about making the decision every single morning that no matter what comes your way, you will do the work. It's about refusing to negotiate with your excuses. It's about getting to a point where action isn't optional. It's automatic. The same way you brush your teeth, the same way you put on your clothes, the same way you eat, you execute your non-negotiables because they are part of who you are. That level of commitment is what separates people who talk about change from the people who actually change. And here's the thing, flipping the switch daily doesn't mean every day will be perfect. It doesn't mean you won't have setbacks or that every session will be your best or that you'll never feel tired, unmotivated, or distracted. It just means that even on your worst days, you still show up. You still find a way to get the work done. Maybe it's not your best performance. Maybe it's not your strongest effort, but you're still there, still moving, still proving to yourself that your discipline doesn't depend on your feelings. That's how you build the kind of consistency that compounds into real transformation over time. There will always be days when life tries to test you, days when nothing goes right, when your schedule is chaos, when you're exhausted and stretched thin, when quitting feels like the easiest option in the world. Those are the days when flipping the switch matters the most. Because it's easy to be disciplined when everything's going well. It's easy to stay focused when you're motivated and inspired. But the real test of discipline, the real proof of who you are, is how you respond on the hard days. When you flip the switch in the face of resistance, when you execute despite every reason not to, you build a kind of self-respect and confidence that can't be taken away from you. The beauty of flipping the switch daily is that it takes the thinking out of it. Once you've committed to being that person, once you've made the decision that this is just what you do, you stop wasting energy debating with yourself. You stop asking, do I feel like it? And you start saying, this is what I do. That mental clarity frees up so much energy because you're no longer fighting the same battle in your head every day. The decision is made. The only thing left is execution. When you build that kind of daily discipline, momentum becomes inevitable. Every day you flip the switch, you stack another brick. Every day you execute, you reinforce the identity of someone who shows up no matter what. And that identity becomes your foundation. It becomes the lens through which you see yourself and the world. You stop seeing discipline as a chore and start seeing it as freedom because you're no longer trapped by the roller coaster of motivation. You've built a system that works, rain or shine, good days or bad, high energy or low. What most people don't realize is that discipline is less about intensity and more about frequency. It's not about doing something massive once in a while. It's about doing the small, unglamorous, necessary things every single day. It's about stacking small wins until the momentum you've built is so strong that stopping would take more effort than continuing. When you flip the switch daily, you start to see the compound effect of your actions. What used to feel hard becomes normal. What used to take effort becomes automatic. And that's when you know you're truly living at a higher standard. Flipping the switch daily also means not letting your emotions dictate your behavior. There will be days when you're tired, stressed, frustrated, or even angry. There will be days when you feel like nothing is working, when the results aren't showing up fast enough, when you wonder if any of it is worth it. Those emotions are normal. They're part of the process, but they can't be the reason you stop. You have to learn how to feel the emotion and still execute the action. That's the difference between people who rise and people who stall. The ones who rise know that their feelings are valid but irrelevant. They don't need to feel like it to do it. And the truth is, the more consistently you flip the switch, the less effort it takes over time. At first, it's hard. At first, every day feels like a battle. Every action feels heavy. Every excuse feels loud. But with repetition, with time, with relentless execution, it gets easier. The habits you're building start to wire themselves into your identity. You stop thinking about discipline as something you do, and you start seeing it as something you are. And when you become the kind of person who just executes, everything in your life changes. The other side of this is understanding that flipping the switch daily doesn't mean never resting. Rest is part of the process. Recovery is part of the process. But the difference is that your rest is intentional, not accidental. You don't rest because you gave up or because you got lazy. You rest because you planned it, because it's part of the system that allows you to keep showing up at your best. That's still discipline. That's still flipping the switch because you're in control of the process instead of letting the process control you. Every day you flip the switch, you're building a reputation with yourself. You're teaching yourself that when you say you're going to do something, you follow through. That self-trust is priceless. It's the foundation of confidence, of resilience, of mental toughness. Because once you know you can rely on yourself, once you've proven over and over that you will do the work no matter what, there's nothing that can shake you. External validation stops mattering. Other people's opinions stop mattering. All that matters is the standard you've set for yourself and whether or not you're meeting it. When you live this way, the world sees the results, but they don't see the process. They see the transformation, the success, the confidence, but they don't see the thousands of times you flipped the switch when no one was watching. They don't see the mornings you got up early when you wanted to sleep in. They don't see the nights you stayed focused when it would have been easier to give up. They don't see the days you showed up at half strength and still found a way to execute. That's why flipping the switch daily is so powerful, because it builds a level of internal strength and consistency that no one can take from you. And here's the reality: life doesn't get easier. The challenges don't stop. The setbacks don't disappear. But when you've built the habit of flipping the switch every single day, you stop waiting for easy. You stop waiting for perfect conditions. You stop waiting for the right time, the right mood, the right level of motivation. You just do the work every day regardless. And that level of consistency, that level of relentless action, compounds over time in ways you can't even imagine.